Welcome to Top 10 Beyond the Screen. I'm your host, Johnny Rogers, and in today's video, we'll be breaking down some of the most disappointing movie endings in film history. Also, just wanted to mention that this video will definitely have spoilers, and just because I'm hating on these movies doesn't mean that I don't appreciate the work that went into making them. But before we get into that, if you don't want to miss another daily video from us, make sure you tap that subscribe button to join our notification squad. Now, without any further delay, let's get right into today's list of the top 10 worst movie endings. In at number 10, I Am Legend. Anytime a film offers up alternate endings to a movie, it's usually because they knew that the audiences weren't going to like their artistic direction. For the most part, I Am Legend is an excellent thriller that keeps you guessing as to what these monsters are that Will Smith is trying to study. In the theatrical ending, we see Dr. Robert Neville finally curing the Crippen virus as he tells Anna and Ethan to run for safety, mainly because he knows that these creatures won't stop chasing them if he doesn't do something. This ending was more predictable than anything else, but what's more frustrating is that the alternate ending actually wrapped things up better, yet for whatever reason they decided to go with one last CGI vampire attack. In the alternate ending, the vampires are revealed to be these thinking, benevolent creatures who are merely attempting to rescue a vampire that Neville had captured earlier, which is how the book ends and is what gives the title meaning. I Am Legend is what Neville realizes when he figures out that the vampires are the good guys and he's been the monster of their legends. I mean, he's literally been just driving stakes into their fellow vampires' heads. In at number 9, Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. In Return of the King, the end credits don't even start until 27 minutes after the ring is destroyed. Yeah, so the movie basically tries to end itself like 6 different times altogether, which is really frustrating if you've been a loyal fan of the series right up until the very last film. The movie really should have just ended with Frodo finally destroying the One Ring, but for whatever reason, they continuously fade out like it's ending and then fade back into something else. The weirdest ending by far, and perhaps the worst, is when Frodo wakes up in his bed with Gandalf watching over him. From there, it turns into a pajama party reunion as hobbits start jumping all over the bed. It's bizarre and far from anything that anyone wanted or expected to see. Then, literally 20 minutes after what seemed to be the end, Sam walks home through the Shire as Frodo's final letter to Sam provides narration, which we could have just jumped to following the destruction of the ring, or as I mentioned earlier, they could have just also ended it with the ring being destroyed. Ugh, nerd rage. In at number 8, The Village. Back in the early days of M. Night Shyamalan, he was being called the next Steven Spielberg. He had just released Unbreakable and The Sixth Sense, plus another film we'll get to later on, but by far The Village had everyone second-guessing that earlier praise. In the film, the elders of the village teach their people to be fearful of these monsters lurking in the woods, and judging by their outfits and the way that they live, you assume that this film is a period piece. So you think, okay, well, that makes sense that they would be, superstitious or scared of these things in the forest, I guess. That is until one member needs medicine and decides to venture off. They don't get very far, they kind of hop the wall and she's just in the middle of the road. It's then revealed that the village actually exists in the present day, which makes you think critically about everything you just watched. If they were in this secluded area the entire time, how did no one ever make it into the village? And how did no one ever, see a plane flying above? It's just lunacy. It's perhaps the second worst M. Night Shyamalan twist in history. It turns out that the elders had met each other in grief counseling sometime in the 1970s, but decided to leave society. But even with that explanation, the ending is still awful. In at number 7, Bird Box. It was the movie that spawned a million memes and even led to YouTube updating its policies and procedures after people uploaded videos of them doing the dangerous Bird Box challenge, which, for those of you who don't know, is just driving with a blindfold on. And if you haven't watched the film yet, it's about these easily avoidable monsters that only attack people when their eyes are open. So for the most of the film, the group is just trying to escape without coming into contact with these creatures while simultaneously doing it all blindfolded. The way they end this film was just utterly disappointing, and the storyline just conveniently connects the dots for us at the very end. The safe space that they end up in is a bit of a double whammy too. It's a school for the blind, and a bird sanctuary. Okay, how did that happen? It's an ending that was predictable as it was bizarre. Like, great, now they can learn Braille and get pooped on by birds that also make noises to protect them. Perfect. In at number 6, Savages. Fans of Don Winslow's crime novel Savages were certainly scratching their heads after seeing Oliver Stone's big screen adaptation. In the final minutes of the film, Stone decides to pull a complete 180 from how the book leaves its readers. He believed that the ending of the source material was far too nihilistic for the film, but it also leaves us wondering, where is the recourse for all of the bad stuff that that these people have done. When O's two lovers, Chon and Ben, reach the remote rendezvous point with the cartel, things begin to go horribly wrong. The cartel leader ends up giving the boys O in exchange for her daughter, but it soon leads to a shootout that leaves Ben fatally wounded. And since Chon and O would rather die than live life as a regular couple, they commit suicide on the spot. It's like a modern day Hamlet if there were two Hamlets. But then all of a sudden O's voice tells us that this is just how things played out in her head. Yeah, the old dream out sequence to save the day. The film then doubles back and presents an ending where everyone ends up living happily ever after. Some bad guys go to jail, other bad guys take over, and our three savages end up living the dream on some island paradise, with no recourse for what they just did throughout this entire movie. In at number 5, Escape Room. In this enthralling horror thriller, 6 strangers are offered the chance to take on the world's most challenging escape room. If they beat the clock, they win a big cash prize, but as things start to heat up, they realize that the stakes are life and death. It's a movie that starts out great and then ends horribly. It even poses an excellent concept that the people who they're talking about that pay you to watch them be tortured is the audience that's actually watching the movie. Okay, that's kind of cool. But only 2 of the original participants make it out, and after the company in charge tries to cover up the murders of their fellow contestants, Zoe makes a plea of revenge to her fellow escapee Ben. They allude to the fact that the company has a new game master and then show them test running a plane crash which is supposed to somehow set up a sequel that's never come, nor will it ever. In at number 4, Inception. Unfortunately, not even this star-studded cast can save this movie's ending. Overall, the concept for this movie is interesting, and at times it has you questioning whether or not what you're watching is actually taking place in reality, or is this another forced dream state. Although for a movie that plays with that idea for the better part of the film, ending it in the way they did felt like highway robbery. The whole plot is based around DiCaprio's character trying to retrieve a childhood toy from a safe in a dream within a dream within a dream. This is supposed to allow the main character Cobb to fulfill his arrangement with Sato and get his kids back. Although he sure wastes a lot of time conversing and just philosophizing and thinking about dreams, and then it all just ends by stating that it's all been a dream, or maybe he's accepted the fact that he's in limbo. No one knows. No one knows. Is he in limbo? Is it a dream? And that's why it's the worst. It leaves too many unanswered questions and does nothing to wrap up this already messy and confusing plotline. In at number 3, Titanic. Okay, from top to bottom, the movie itself was packed with romance, action, and historical thrills, if you will. But both the ending to the film and even the alternate endings are just awful. For one, when they are just floating on that door, why didn't Rose just take turns with Jack? Like, she goes into the water for a bit, then he goes in. No, she had to be selfish and just let him freeze to death. If she loved him so much, why didn't she share the door? Then on top of it all, old Rose has the Heart of the Ocean necklace for the entire film, but she's kept it a secret and then just tosses it into the ocean. So what exactly was the point of this big expedition? Just so they could wheel you out of a nursing home for a boat ride? The alternate ending is even worse though. In the alternate, she actually reveals that she has the necklace, but then there's this weird standoff where she threatens to drop it into the ocean if they come any closer. She's like, "Don't move, I'll drop it." And then when she eventually does throw it overboard, it's like, it's nothing. It also brings in one of the worst lines ever written in movie history. In at number 2, Signs. For the most part, M. Night Shyamalan's Signs had some great acting and even better cinematography. While most alien films show invasion on a global scale with, giant spaceships coming down and mass destruction, Signs focuses on one family experiencing this alien threat. Sure, there's some other characters coming in, but it's mostly the one family. And the part that really ruins this for a lot of movie lovers is that the alien is clearly revealed, which makes you realize how subpar the visual effects are. Also, one would think that a group of extraterrestrials who developed the technology to travel all the way to Earth from their home planet would have at least checked to see if Earth contained their main weakness. It is possible that in M. Night Shyamalan's head, the aliens just never realized that water could be so detrimental to their existence, but either way, the plot twist that water is what kills them, just so ridiculous. You can see it from space. It's 70% water. Last but certainly not least, in our number 1 spot, Grease. This one's a bit of a throwback, and some people actually excuse this awful ending because it's part of a musical, but we're not gonna cut them any slack on this one whatsoever. The last scene shows Sandy and Danny reuniting, and then they just drive off together into the sunset. Although for whatever reason, in this case, the car ascends into the sky. The ending has always felt very unsatisfactory, and why did they both have to change who they were to get the other's attention. Like, they have Sandy needing to dress up, and then Danny starting to dress down, and then there's the car flying off into the sky. For a film that was all about the everyday lives of high school students, this sudden supernatural turn is just as bizarre in 2020 as it was in the late 1970s. Like I said, it's a bit of a throwback, but it remains as the worst movie ending in history. And that has been the top 10 worst movie endings. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to our editing team for making me look so good. If you enjoyed this video, then please show us some love here by tapping that like and subscribe button. Plus, don't forget to leave us a comment down below with your thoughts on today's list. And for more videos like this one, all you gotta do is tap that playlist when it pops up. From Top 10 Beyond the Screen, my name is Johnny Rogers, saying until next time, stay classy.